Anyway.
Sure, yeah, let's
Our seventh tradition states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. We are now going to pass the basket. This is a weekly literature or step meeting. Our format is as follows. The speaker is asked to talk no longer than 30 minutes. He or she spends the first 15 minutes qualifying themselves, and the other 15 minutes either speaking about the step of the week or a composition from the big book. It's then followed by shares, discussions, questions until 7 p.m. We then end the meeting with either the Lord's Prayer or the Serenity Prayer, whichever the speaker chooses. You can find our past weekly meetings on our YouTube page called the Stay Alive Literature and Step Group Meeting. You can also find information on the upcoming meetings and other great stuff on the Doylestown Recovery Group Facebook page. Do not forget to smash the like button, subscribe, and share. This brings us to the speaker portion of our meeting on this day of December the 15th, 2025 in Doylestown, PA at the Monday night 6 p.m. Stay Alive Literature and Step Group meeting at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Actually I'll introduce, but early on when I first started coming, I saw this young man, and he was one of the faces that I clearly remember. I'm not sure how long you've been in the program, but it's been a little while. Whether it be Zoom meetings or whether it be the Saturday meetings, and I've just watched this young man grow, and it's just pretty crazy. He's actually spoke for me in the past. I've listened to one of his talks when he spoke on the Saturday meeting, and it was unbelievable. So I'm really glad to have him. So anyway, let's all welcome Thomas, and he's going to be speaking on step 9.
Yeah, I'm Thomas, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Thomas.
I have this, I'd like to say that I have like over 2 years, but I don't. Like we all like to wish that we were sober longer than we were, do less damage to our lives and our brain. But as of right now, I have March 1st. So I was trying to do the math. What is that, like 10 months? Something like that.
Okay.
This time of complete abstinence, like 100% abstinence. I'm not on any psychiatric medicine. I'm not taking Advils for a headache. I do nothing. I don't even think about it anymore, which is amazing because when I was, to qualify, when I was out of my mind, I couldn't imagine not thinking about what I liked, the thing that brought me relief, which was whatever my substance of choice was. It doesn't even matter now that I'm starting to get further into my program. I'm like, it's all the same thing. Yeah, I like this flavor of this or whatever, but it doesn't really matter. It's just like what it did for me. And what it did for me is like take away all of the fears, anxieties, and pains of my life. But like to back up a little bit, I guess my story was like anybody else's. In high school, I liked to party, and that was that. And I did what everybody else did, but maybe I took it a little bit extreme. And I did that for a while, got myself in a ton of trouble through the years. But it's like not anything that you wouldn't see somebody doing that's like that age. It's not like surprising. No, I wasn't the valedictorian and I wasn't making the greatest decisions, but there wasn't obviously like me burning my life down. There was still potential until something changed. And what changed is that, I guess looking back on it, is that there was like this progression happening, and I didn't understand that was what was happening. So like it started off like with, I was only doing it a couple of days of the week, and I was happy like every day of the week. Not that I was miserable. Maybe I was like a little itchy with my personality, maybe a little irritable, maybe I wanted things that I couldn't have, like who doesn't? But it just, as it started progressing, when I look back, where I noticed it become a problem is when I wasn't using it for parties, and I wasn't using it to have a good time anymore. In my story, like for my story, I started like becoming a chemist. Like I wanted to like, I was like very like particular about like what I was using and how much I was using, and like I was going to use this for this, and I was going to use that to like, get rid of that feeling. And I was only doing this at this time of the day, and then like in the middle of the night I'd be waking up to do this, and it was just like, it was insane looking back on it. But in the moment I thought that I was like, I've cracked the code. Like when my anxiety pokes up, I take a little bit of this, I'll have a couple extra in my sock if I need it, I'll have this in this pocket, and it was just like so much going on just to maintain this thing that was just like slowly snowballing out of control. It wasn't out of control. I had a full-time job at this point, full-time job, and I'm starting to like really get into my stride of things. Like I found my solution this time. Not like when I was younger and I was partying and like out of control, my solution, it wasn't a solution back then. The difference was back then, not saying I didn't abuse anything. I was a blackout drinker from day one. The first day I had alcohol, I blacked out. Woke up feeling terrible, but I decided to do it again the very next night. Within that first year, I already got everything off my checklist. I already experimented with everything. I wanted it. I remember being in a assembly as like a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old, something like first grade, whatever, however old you are for that. They were like going through the different drugs and like why you shouldn't do them. And I remember seeing one of them in particular, and I was like, oh my God, I want to do that. As an 8-year-old, not saying I got addicted to anything back then, but it just goes to show you that the obsession was there, and I didn't take time off until I got that itch. But so back to the progression. After it was no longer being used as, the party, and it started being a part of my life, the progression just kept going, I guess. And the progression for me turned into, not only was I just blacking out on the nights I was drinking, I started like losing chunks of my life. And you would look back, and I had a lot of problems with like people like telling me how things happened, and I'd be like, that's not how it happened, because my memory was starting to flicker, and I was basically just like not even living anymore. If you want more context, I was a bit of a bar-tard, if anybody knows what that is, just to put that out there. And I was enabling myself, and people around me were enabling. I was pretty good at also hiding it too. I'm a very like low-key person, I think, even when I'm under the influence. And I just got away with a lot for a long time until I didn't. So as that progressed up, and I had like my solution taken care of, I found the concoction, I found the times of the days that I liked doing it. The thing that I saw is just that the amount that I needed kept increasing and increasing, and it became unmanageable quickly. And when I wasn't able to take exactly how much I wanted, I was becoming a really bitter and sour person. It was hard to be around me because I was explosively angry with people. I was, looking back at it, a victim of life. I was extremely selfish. Like, I didn't really care that, like, it was all about, like, I needed to take what I needed to take in order to not feel horrible. Because it was very clear that it stopped being like, I'm going to take this to feel good, to where, like, oh, I need to take this so I don't feel horrible. And then as like this progression keeps happening, my mindset is slipping slowly. I'm going into a depression. I'm having panic attacks. Like, it just like, it was the most clear version of like someone falling into insanity, that when I'm looking back at it. But while I was in it, that was just like, it was normal. It was my life. My life was just so unmanageable. I guess there's a saying, it's like, when the abnormal becomes normal. It happens so slowly. There's been a study where it's like, if you win the lottery, it takes 10 days for your brain to completely normalize it. So when you think about like the progression of addiction and alcoholism, nobody starts drinking alcohol one day and then 10 days later they're like, it happens over years or months or however it is, but it's longer than 10 days for most people. So like, you don't like, you can't really, when you're in it, notice how far things are going, how sour, and like, it's just, this is my new normal. Next week I'm worse, but that's my new normal again. And you just keep doing that until you're like, oh my God, I want to swallow a gun barrel and blow my brains out on the back of this wall right here. And that's just like how dark it got to. And I guess I was dealing with suicidal thoughts for quite a while. Like, I didn't even really understand it, but I hated being alive, and I really did just want to end it all. But there was like, luckily, a couple people in my life where I was like, you know what, I really feel pretty bad if I just painted the wall with my brains. So I'm gonna, it's kind of a win-win. I won't, create this horrible situation, and I'll keep getting to get high, even though and drink alcohol, use my solution, and keep getting to where I want to get, this like thing of peace. And my version of peace in the lowest point was just being off. I tell this like in like the what's it called, war stories. In the end, my blackouts started being like really bad. My blackouts were starting to be, not only were they nights, they started turning into days at a time. My last blackout was 3 weeks long, my very last one before I went into rehab. And that's because I just like, the obsession, you know, when you start drinking and you know, you just can't stop. And I started doing that too, like on top with that, I started doing it with everything. And I would just wake up like a week later, all my things are gone. I'm in a completely, I don't know, I'm waking up in Philadelphia sometimes. I woke up in Florida one time, if you can believe that. And just, I don't know if, what really happened, but by the grace of God, one night I was, you know, apparently trying to kill my family or something, and I got hit with an ultimatum. It's homelessness or rehab. Clearly, I'm not in, I know somebody in this room had a very similar story to me and chose homelessness, but I chose rehab. I went there, and it was a pretty fun experience. I have lots of family that have gone through the different types of addictions, and I just know, you know, some of my family members gone to rehab 30 times, and you know, if it worked the first time, why would you need to go 29 more times? So I knew like something was going on there, like I had to take it seriously, but at the same time I was also like so confident in myself where I was like, oh yeah, I'll go for 3-4 weeks and I'll come out and I'll be healed. And it's funny that I thought that because at this time I've also been trying to like stop the addiction for years. I started going to meetings, didn't work because I'd go to the meeting and I thought it was enough to just like clock in for the hour and then just leave and I would just like magically be better. It was the worst strategy ever because I'd go to the meeting and I'd hear somebody like me's stupid story and I'd be like, oh my God, this guy sucks. Everything about his life is annoying. I don't want to hear his problems. I want to just go do what I want to go do. And I would just sit there and become restless, irritable, and discontent. And just everything about everyone was irritable. Like when I'm not using my thing, my solution, which is drugs and alcohol, I just become like, I'm crawling out of my skin. I'm literally itching at myself to just like, for everything to stop. And it just becomes like that, like overwhelming to where I just remember being in meetings and I would just like, I couldn't hear anything. And it was so frustrating. I would just be on my phone. I come from the era where you could just order stuff on your phone. That's how I did my stuff. I'd be placing orders in the middle of the meeting because I was just like so sick. I was like, I can't be sober anymore. I need relief. And that's what it was looking back. It was relief. I needed relief. And I wasn't getting relief just by showing up at a meeting and stamping my time card for an hour. What I didn't understand back then was that there was a solution that wasn't just showing up for an hour. And it's the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And you have to work the 12 steps and get a sponsor and do everything they tell you. You got to find someone too. Like, honestly, if you were looking for a sponsor, I wouldn't go to someone like me. I have 8 months sober. You know, they say that you can do that, but like find someone with the best sobriety possible and be like, yo, show me how you did that. And then take every suggestion that they tell you and actually do it because your life does depend on it. I remember being in rehab and this one of the counselors who was like, I knew he had it, like, he didn't have like an easy time. Like nobody has an easy time. I knew this guy definitely didn't have an easy time. And he was like, dude, if you like don't take this seriously and do your 4th step, you're gonna die. And I knew that. When I got to rehab, I showed up to rehab blacked out. We're not recording this, right? Or are we? No? Well, the amount of blackout driving that I would do was scary. I was a menace to society. My rehab was 6 hours away. I don't know how I drove there. I found videos on my phone driving on I-95 going over 100 miles an hour, whipping through, like doing the, you know how people like to, what do you call it, cut it up or whatever? That was me. I was insane. I don't know how I'm still alive. And I did that every single day, driving around these roads. My car has lane assist, thank God. So maybe that kept me alive. That's my higher power. But yeah, I mean, it was insanity. So luckily, I get to rehab, and I finally get like mandatory separation. Because when I was talking before, like going to a meeting and like itching through my skin, I don't know. Maybe I was like 48 hours sober. Like I could never really get past that. And now this rehab, they're like, oh, you're gonna be sober for 28 days, whether you like it or not. And I was like, all right, that's cool with me until they start like, first of all, the first 2 weeks I'm there anyway, I'm on protocol anyway. It's not even like I was taking so much where you couldn't just stop. They were scared I was gonna die anyway. But I finally get separated, and like what ends up happening is like rehab's fun and all, but like I'm also like, it's like all of the things that made me use in the first place are starting to creep up. Because now I'm sober, and it's bad, and I don't like it. I'm withdrawing really bad. My thoughts are insane. I can't control any of my arms or legs because the benzos messed up the GABA receptors in my brain. I'm just like, I know it's serious because it's just hard to ignore all the withdrawing. And then my mind is like equally as bad. And like I talked about before with the suicidal thoughts, now they're just there. And I don't have a solution. There is no turning those thoughts off anymore. I have to just sit with them all day long. And you're in rehab with a bunch of like addicts and alcoholics, so it's funny like watching everybody like with their mental problems. And you could kind of like stay busy for a while. But like I was there, I stayed in this program for like almost 6 months. So I had a lot of watching to do, and eventually it became normal. And I had to like actually focus on my own problems. And so this is one story Ron likes. I was in my rehab. Yeah, I moved from the detox to like a long-term AA-based rehab, which is amazing. If you're gonna go to a rehab, you better hope it's an AA-based one. But so they forced me to start doing my steps, which is great. But I'm like, I don't want to do it because I'm lazy, and I like the easy, softer way, which is like my substances and alcohol. So I'm like not actually doing it, but I'm trying to do it because I want to get better, and I know if you don't go for it, you're not gonna do it. Like if you don't like dive headfirst in and like do it with all your might, you're gonna. I was like daydreaming about stuff all day long. Not daydreaming about winning the lottery, obviously. Like daydreaming about like shoving a bottle down my throat and just pounding anything I can find. Yeah.
Story about Ron likes.
Oh yeah. So the what do they call it? The counselors are always talking about like rigorous honesty. Like if you want this program to work for you, you got to be rigorously honest. And for some reason, I was paying attention that day, and I was like, okay, rigorous honesty, I'll do that. And then my clinician calls me in. She's like, Thomas, like, what's going on? And I was like, well, I'll be rigorously honest with you. Like I want to like blow my head off right now. And she's like, oh, like, do you know like how you do it? I'm like, of course I know how I do it. I'm not an idiot. I would do this. I would like, I know exactly what I would do. I've been thinking about this for a while. And she was like, oh, okay. And I go outside, I'm like smoking a cigarette, and then I get like swatted by like 4 of the clinicians. And they're like, you weren't trying to leave, were you? I was like looking for like a lighter in my car or something. And they're like, you're not trying to leave. I was like, no, why? They're like, oh, you said some things to Andrea in there. And I was like, yeah, so what? And they're like, well, you gotta leave now. And I'm like, what do you mean I gotta leave? They're like, you gotta like, you basically will make this real easy for you. Like you either say you're gonna go to this mental hospital or we're gonna send it to you. And I'm like, send you there. And I'm like, what if I just get in my car and leave? I remember the guy, he's like, if you get in your car and drive away right now, I'm gonna call the cops, tell them you have a kid like tied up in your trunk and that you have a gun and that you hate cops. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm not getting out of this one. So he's like, you could either go to the mental hospital where they only give you peanut butter and jelly, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you sleep on a mattress with like 2 other dudes, or you can go to this one that's cushy and have like chocolate chip cookies. And I was like, all right, whatever, I'll just go to this stupid thing. And then that's how I got put into the mental hospital. And if you thought like people in detox and rehab are funny, go to the mental hospital. It's really fun. I loved it in there, but I was also like, the little freedom I had in rehab, like I really missed that little bit of freedom, being in there and them telling me when I can't smoke a cigarette. That was just, I lost way too much freedom for me. So I quickly made an escape out of that place. Not like literally over the fence, but like just playing the clinicians. Like, oh, I'm very normal. I don't have any psychiatric problems. And, I just manipulated myself right out of there. Because I was also on the 5-minute thing, and it was really annoying. Like every 5 minutes, someone's opening my door, like, "Hey, Thomas, you gonna go to group?" I'm like, "No, F you, I'm not going to group." Yeah, but all that said and done, like that was kind of like how, I guess, for my story, where, not using a program and using substances and alcohol got me. So fast forward, I finally, resent myself out of rehab because I can't stand, this lazy person over here not doing their dishes, this guy being too loud, everything you get in a sober house. You just hate everybody in the house. So I finally convinced, my mom to let me move back in with her, and she's like, "Yeah, I'd love to see you," and I moved back, and it wasn't easy because now I have like all this freedom. Now I could there's alcohol sitting in the fridge. And I remember the first time I was home alone, I took a bunch of beer and just put it on the kitchen counter. And I was just looking at it. And I was literally drooling. And I was like, I just went to rehab for 6 months, and I'm still having this visceral response where I'm drooling, looking at beer, which is like not even like anything to write home about. So I do what I do best, and I came to this very meeting. I literally came to this Monday night meeting, and I met a bunch of good people, and I just threw myself back into AA. Even though I didn't really have a good experience in AA, I did rehab up in Boston, and I had to do the 4 meetings a week, maybe and more, and then plus all of the home meetings, whatever that crap was. But yeah, nothing really happened up there. But what happened is when I started doing, really it was, I know I'm supposed to be talking about the 9th step, and I will in a second, but 10, 11, and 12, man, not so much 12, but trying the 9, 10, and 11 really helped me. So like with the 9th step, where you make amends wherever possible, kind of goes into, I would say, that's like the heart of your program. When you work this program, especially with the 4th, you uncover like all this crap that you basically find out like how much of an a-hole you were for your whole life. And it's like, wow, I've been living like this, and this is how spiritual people live. I need to stop being over here and come over here. And hopefully if you have a good sponsor, they'll point out all these things that you're doing to act like a selfish a-hole and try to become a selfless person that others like want to be around. And that's been my experience, is taking like active steps to become this better person and try not to be resentful at people. And if I do make a mistake, I own up to it immediately and apologize. Making all of the amends, like, even when you don't want to do them. I think I'm pretty, like for the 9th step, I don't think I've had that, maybe I'm being a little bit delusional. I do try to own up to my mistakes immediately, because if you don't, that's just something you're going to have to write down later, and I'm really lazy, so I'd rather just get it over with immediately. You know what I mean? I don't know how much longer I should ramble. I don't know what I even missed. Europe. Oh man, that's a whole thing. Yeah, you never really know. So I get back and I start working the program, right? I start working how I think I'm supposed to be working it, and I'm sober long enough, and now people are like, "All right, Thomas, do you want an opportunity?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Like let's do this." And my uncle was like, "Gee, if you start selling timeshare over here in Europe, you could work, travel, make money at the same time." And I was like, "Sign me up." And I move over there, and immediately the obsession came back. Like, immediately. Because now I wasn't living with my mom anymore. I had complete freedom. Because before I was like, all right, I'll like try to keep it together for her. But now I got complete freedom. And now I could do exactly what I want to do. So my sister actually took the job with me. So she was like a little bit of my accountability. But after 5 days of her being there was like too many spiders for her. Like, she didn't like that Europe was old, so she moved back. And as soon as she moved back, I blacked out that night. I was like, yes, give me that freedom. And yeah, so it didn't go too well. And then for the remainder of my time in Europe, I was basically an alcoholic again. I was an alcoholic again. I remember waking up one night at like 4 a.m. My whole body is just profusely dripping sweat. I'm like, oh my God, why do I do this to myself? Even the first night I blacked out, I had to get on a plane that next day and fly to Italy. I threw up in my room. I pissed all over the room. I was just like so bad, just like not feeling good. And I was like, I will never drink again. And of course, I'm drinking the next very day when I land, or probably drinking in the airport. Actually, I was with my cousin who thought I was sober. Meanwhile, I'm like puking in the shuttle to the airport, and he's like, oh, that's probably normal. Like some people that aren't alcoholics just like don't know. They like just think like, oh, you have a stomach ache. Like, dude, I don't have a stomach ache. I've been secretly drinking vodka the whole night prior. He was getting like a thrown away party, and I was just getting hammered. But yeah, so what did I do? Looking back, I moved to Europe. I stopped doing meetings. I stopped doing, like I had a whole routine. I was going to a meeting every day. Sometimes, I was going to a physical meeting every day. After rehab, when I came back here, I was going on the Zooms at night doing my 10th step, and it was working really, really well. I was happy, the obsession was gone, but I move away, I get all this freedom, I stopped working a program, the obsession immediately came in, and I was hopeless. I was literally defenseless, and it just took off again, and it ignited. Luckily, I thought I was like, oh, I'll only stick to alcohol, and, I didn't even end up doing that. Luckily, it didn't get so bad to the point where I couldn't get back off the train. Ron brought up I like this. This is like my favorite analogy I've ever heard. I heard at the Thursday night last week. His alcoholism is like a train that's slowly speeding up, and like when it's like 5 miles an hour, you can hop on and off as you'd like, but eventually, like once it's 80 miles an hour, you can't get off. And I remember when the train was going 80 miles an hour, I wanted to stop, but I could not stop. I was powerless. Like if you need the best definition of powerlessness, that for me in my experience, I was so powerless. I couldn't even stop if I wanted to because I would seize to death. Like I had no hope. I didn't know what to do, and I couldn't stop. I could not stop at all. And so, I moved back. I get back into the program. I kind of want to, but like I also don't want to commit to getting time. I don't want 3 months because if I have 3 months, then I'll like actually have to get sober. So I'll like purposely relapse every months. But then I remember March 1st, that's when I had my last drink. And I made it a point because there was a Saturday night speaker. And I don't know if this was his actual story, but this is how my brain heard it. There was a code blue, and we were in that room, and the guy killed his own brother in a drunk driving accident. And he said specifically, and this is what made me stop, he was like, how many second chances are you going to be able to get to where God is like, you know what, you're a lost cause? Because there's been multiple points in my life where I got the luckiest break. Sometimes I tell this story. I basically won the lottery one time. I won like $250,000, right? And such a lucky break. What did I do? I blew it. And I blew it fast. And like, why did I do that? It was such a lucky break, and I could have like really made smart decisions, but I decided to make bad decisions. And I was thinking about like, I got back from Europe, and I had this opportunity where I was like sober enough to actually take action and do this program again, right? And have a beautiful life, or slip into nothingness again and maybe like take this opportunity to get sober, take it for granted, and ruin my life again. Because looking back at my track record, every time I'm not working a program and I'm just doing whatever I want to do, it keeps getting worse, and it gets worse fast. And I guess that's like the progression. Like you can never really undo the damage and the wiring you do to your brain. Maybe it takes like long amounts of time to really get better. But from my experience, when you stop doing the work, you just slowly start slipping. And you know what? Maybe I am a little guilty of not working the perfect program. I'm just trying my best. I know now that I am better than I've ever been. I don't have the obsession. It creeps up every once in a while, every very blue moon. Like what I said earlier, being in the rehab, it was every 5 minutes. It was maybe every like 30 seconds. I could not get it out of my head. I would drool. I would hear an Advil thing click, and I would just be like, I was like the dog from that science experiment or whatever that thing is. But I think that's all I got.
All right, man.
Yeah.
So we've come to that part of the meeting. We're going to open up the floor for shares, discussions, and questions. Try to limit your time to 3 minutes because we have quite a few people here. Try to keep the conversation to the literature that Tom has shared about. And listen, if you feel like drinking or if you had a drink today, please come see me or speak to someone after the meeting. So opening up the floor. So let's go with T and then we'll go with Con.